Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, heck, college sports fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show, usually featuring Clay Hall, but today featuring Bill Bender. Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill Bender who keeps his eye on everything nationally, internationally. Bill Bender not only does college football stories, does college basketball, does NFL stuff on occasion. Right around the corner, Bill. I'm trying to sell you as hard as I can here, but Bill Bender, welcome once again to the Tim May Show.
Hey, I appreciate it, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing extremely well, as a matter of fact. If I was feeling better, I'd be 40 years old, but I'm not. Bottom line is, Bill, you're kind of subbing for Clay Hall today, but really there is no substitute, right? I mean, you're your own thing. You're Splenda. And he's aspartame. You know what I'm saying? Huh?
Sure. No, it's always good to be back on with you. I think this is
actually you're more stevia because I think you're better for people. Go ahead now.
Is it Truvia?
Stevia, Stevia, plant extract is now used more widely as a artificial sweetener. But go ahead.
No, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, I know we've been able to do a couple of these during the season at, I guess, critical points, and we're almost done with this season. So this is as good a time as any to come onto your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's funny because as you were talking, I was thinking, well, wait a minute. If stevia is a plant extract, it's not artificial, right? Am I right on that? Would I be right on that? It would be just like sugar, right? In some ways.
I use one of them in coffee.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the one.
Well, your wife may have gotten you onto stevia because supposedly it's better for you, but who knows, right? Who knows?
Right.
Maybe I'll check those guidelines, those new guidelines that were introduced today.
It's the green and white one. The green and white label one. That's the one.
Okay. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot more than you need to know. The reason I got Bill Bender on is not just a sub for Clay Hall. And by the way, keep Clay in your prayers. His mom passed away. She'd been sick for a while. His dad passed away a few months ago. But he's down in South Carolina taking care of business, but, being with his brother. And it was no shock that his mom was going to pass, but it's still your mom, right? I remember when my dad passed and he was 87. This was back in 2012, and somebody came up to me, meaning the best, but they said, "Well, 87. He was with you for a long time. You were lucky there." And I said, "Yeah, we were lucky." I said, "But 87, we kind of got used to having him around. You know what I mean?
Right.
Finally." Because my dad was an interesting dude, but chemical engineer, but still interesting dude. Those guys think funny thoughts sometimes. But anyway, Clay, our heart goes out to you, my man, and we're thinking of you. But getting back to business here, Bill, I don't know if you've heard, but the semifinals are this week, Thursday and Friday night.
For sure.
Typical college football dates, the Thursday night and the Friday night. What do you think?
Well, I mean, conflicted. Obviously, these games should be played on Saturday, but if you're leading into,
there's an elephant in the room known as the NFL. But go ahead.
Yeah, where's the shield?
Yeah,
this says NFL on it, and it does lead into a very fun football weekend, though. If you like both, which I do, and you go from Thursday to Friday to Saturday, Sunday, all the way into Monday to finish off the wild card weekend, and selfishly as a Green Bay fan, I'm glad they're out of the way of the Packers-Bears game, so I can watch that one without having to focus on a college football game. That said,
or do like me and Jeff Snook do, man. Just get like 3 or 4 TVs going.
Well, yeah, we do that
when I ever have a chance. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, but it's still an odd placement. I think we can agree on that. When you have people go to work on Friday, so Thursday night, you're trying to watch. That's going to be Ole Miss Miami. Mm-hmm. Should be a really entertaining game.
It's intriguing. Let's put it that way.
For a lot of reasons.
Yes.
Which one's the most intriguing?
Most intriguing to me is the lone survivor. Is that the name of the or the survivor? If this was a survivor show of the Southeastern Conference, their last claim to fame is Ole Miss, right, who lost their head coach. Now have lost their running backs coach for the semifinals. We'll see what kind of effect that had, but they're in it, and they're the SEC's claim to fame as we speak. What do you think about that? Did you have that card back in September?
Unexpected. For sure. No doubt. I mean, obviously, and unexpected that their coach is not going to be there. I mean, this is not a scenario that the SEC expected.
Yeah. Well, actually, their head coach is there now. He got named a permanent head coach, but go ahead.
The head coach that started the season.
Yes.
The clarification, Lane Kiffin, obviously not going to be there. Some talk about whether or not he internally, would he be second guessing this move? And I think that's the intriguing part to me is there's no guarantee that LSU gets to a college football playoff semifinal. Is there?
Dude, are we going to see deja vu, as the old saying goes, all over again, where a guy left a big time university with a storied college football past to go to LSU because he thought that would give him the best chance in the latter stages of his career to win a national championship? Of course, I'm talking about Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU, where the talent is plentiful, where the big hog mollies, are all over the place. Just turn your head, and there's a big time defensive tackle or three technique right there. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, he's still looking. If he's looking, he's still looking for a job right now because he got basically fired mid-season this year by LSU. Is Lane Kiffin going to suffer the same fate? I mean, just because you've done A, B, C, and D, you still haven't won the brass ring where you're coming from, right?
Right. And
boy, did you put together a team where you're coming from.
Well, and there's shades of Michigan in 1989 with Bill Frieder and Steve Fisher here. Very few people remember Bill Frieder. He's a good coach, perfectly good basketball coach. Most people remember Steve Fisher for better or worse, right? They did win the national title. They did have some scandal at the end of his.
They did
a lot, but you remember the Fab Five. You remember Steve Fisher for, like I said, for better or worse. But this is like that situation. Where,
wait a minute, a team at Michigan had a scandal. Go ahead now.
Yeah, this was some. There's a generation that might not remember 1989. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, and time out.
But they will remember. I think Lane Kiffin will be remembered a lot more than Bill Frieder for how he left. And at the time, I was one of those people. Yeah, you think in your head, yeah, LSU's a better job. What's changed, and this is the tournament as a whole, is we were talking about before we came on. It does feel like March Madness more.
Yeah,
it does.
It absolutely does.
The average seed in these semifinals is 5.5. We haven't had a number one overall seed in the March Madness win the tournament. The one time since 2014, UConn in 2024 has won the entire tournament.
It's crazy.
How many times is the number one seed going to win the college football playoff now?
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit more difficult. We found that out the hard way.
Have we also found out the SEC is basically a poser? Have we found out the SEC in modern times is a poser? Greg Sankey, one of these things is not like the other, and then everything is followed after that. It just means more. All that, whatever it is the SEC suddenly denigrated? Is that the right term? No. Has it gone backwards? Has it regressed into being more of a poser than what we thought it was 5-6 years ago? SEC football.
The most jarring result.
Southeastern Conference.
Most jarring result was not that Indiana beat Alabama. It was how.
Exactly.
38-3. Total domination in every way against what has been probably the most they've been the most dominant program of the playoff era with Saban.
Correct.
That's changed. They're 20-8 with Kalen DeBoer. That's about the same record as Tennessee and Missouri.
Correct.
So poser, I don't know if that's the word I would use. I would say they're going to have to adapt to the times that the Big Ten is setting the standard with, where you're at Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. Those are three of the top 5 programs the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And Ohio State beyond, obviously. Michigan and Penn State hired pretty good coaches. Not pretty good. I think they'll be very good.
Yes.
USC is still a quality program. I mean,
even Michigan State hired a good coach. Pat Fitzgerald.
They made a good hire.
Yes.
Northwestern has made upgrades in the last 2
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, between
that's crazy.
Chip Kelly and Aiden Childs.
Where's that? What do you think's driving that?
Well, probably money.
Yeah.
Money is the answer. And I think.
Well, of course it is, but I'm just saying, somebody's gotten very excited about Northwestern football.
I don't know how to say this
with money
delicately, but the money's different. in the Big Ten
Yeah.
versus the SEC. Where the money's coming from is different. I think the NIL is more established in the Big Ten at places like Penn State, Notre Dame outside the Big Ten. Ohio State has it figured out. So that's, and were you surprised when Iowa beat Vanderbilt? I know I wasn't.
No. Matter of fact, the bad thing for Vanderbilt was after the Heisman Trophy ceremony at Al and stuff, I always use that Al wrong, but I don't care. There were a lot of people rooting against Vanderbilt. And Diego Pavia, no offense, but you say something stupid and self-serving, you deserve to be booed and or rooted against. So they even had karma going against them in that game. Don't you agree?
In some ways, yes. Obviously, he still had a nice second half, but Iowa came out and hit him.
Oh yeah,
Illinois beat Tennessee.
Yeah,
those are the games that register. And I know bull metrics are one part of the story, but it's part of the story.
You take this team from this part of the SEC and play it against this team from the same part of the Big Ten, meaning in the rankings, in the final, standings, and this team beat that team. That's a measurement as much as anything else in terms of better go, well, not everybody played in the bowl game or they had no interest because they weren't in the playoff. Right. That's the way those people sound, by the way. Actually, they sound like this. Well, they didn't really have any interest in winning a bowl game because they weren't in the playoff. See, I grew up down there in Alabama and Texas, so I can mock them because I'm from among them. But no, everything adds up. So I go back to my original question. Southeastern Conference is a poser at this moment in terms of being the be-all, end-all of college football. No teams are like these teams. These teams are not one thing is not like the other. This thing is not like the other, which is what Greg Sankey said many years ago when he was lobbying for an extra team to get into the playoff or whatever. That's untrue. They're posers now. You got a team from the ACC, a team that most people thought shouldn't have been in, and Notre Dame should have been. And in Miami, playing in the national semifinals, has won 2 games at Texas A&M and beat the number 1 seed Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Poser, I'm talking about the SEC. Not a poser, Miami. The team that a lot of people thought shouldn't have been in it was Alabama, and Notre Dame should have been, just based on the way Alabama finished. But I thought Alabama found something in the second quarter and second half against Oklahoma that turned out to be fool's gold. But, dude, seriously, this is phenomenal what Indiana's doing.
It is. And, to your point about if anybody should have been left out of the playoff, it was probably Alabama for Notre Dame. You can't tell me Notre Dame, Indiana would have been a better game.
Agreed.
And I think that loss also may carry over. It's not supposed to, but it may carry over in terms of when we're picking teams next year.
Well, should.
Maybe they won't get the benefit of the doubt that they've gotten in the past, and the Big Ten might. The Big Ten teams, the healthiest, as bad as it hurts in Columbus, I've said this for about 3 weeks now, the healthiest thing for the Big Ten, it would be a third team in 3 years a third different team winning a national title.
That's what I was going to bring up with you. I made a list of questions, but I was trying to make it more conversational. But
we can spill into that.
Go ahead and go into that, man. What does that mean?
It means this. The best way you can illustrate that is the last time a Big Ten school playing for the Big Ten won a national title that wasn't Michigan or Ohio State was 1965. Wow, with Michigan State.
Michigan State.
I think that I not
Duffy Daugherty.
That was what I was going to say. It's probably a Duffy Daugherty team.
Bubba.
Those guys. That's 60 years. 60 years later, you have one of the most improbable stories maybe ever with the way that Indiana's been able to win with Curt Cignetti, the turnaround. They have the second worst winning percentage of any major program in college football. They've passed Wake Forest, by the way. Mm-hmm. So they got out of the basement. And now they have a chance to win a national title. It is, Tim, you tell me, you've covered this sport a lot longer than I have.
I know what you're fixing at. This is the greatest coaching job program turnaround ever. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching college football. My dad took me and my older brother Ben to Alabama home games from 61 to 64. So what is that? 64 years. I've been watching college football live to a certain extent, and unbelievable. You're even in this portal NIL era, you're not supposed to be able to do what they've done 2 years in a row. And I said way back in the spring, And summer when I was on even on my podcast, but also on like 97.1 The Fan when I would guest host and things like that, Indiana was going to be better than it was last year. It doesn't mean necessarily their record was going to be better, but you could see they were a better team of the guys they picked up in the portal, not the least of which was Fernando Mendoza.
Right.
Their quarterback, they had a major upgraded quarterback. No offense to Mr. Rourke, who came from your alma mater, Ohio U, which we'll touch on in a minute. But this guy's a better quarterback, a big-time quarterback. And, boy, big-time quarterbacks can take you places.
Yeah, and they'll have another one next year with Josh Hoover. I think Kurt Cignetti's found a way. Pat Forty at SI wrote something this week. They don't make mistakes. They don't fumble the ball. They don't have penalties on defense. They don't beat themselves. They're
sound as a pound, as the old saying goes on defense.
Yeah, Pat had a great piece on that and did a nice job of kind of spelling that out for everybody. They are, and that's coaching. They're one of the best coached teams in the country.
But let me interject something too. You can be well coached and you can be sound. That doesn't mean you're still going to make the plays. They've got really good players. They have done, like you were talking about, they have done a great job of identifying guys in the portal, for example, that fit exactly what they want and not just fit what they want, but will play at a high level, I guess is the best way of putting it. What they do up front on defense, for example, it's still stirring or spinning the heads of Ohio State's offensive coaches, especially their offensive line, et cetera, what they did in that Big Ten championship game. Ask Oregon about them. When they went to Oregon and really, with the exception of a pick six, beat the hell out of Oregon in the second half. You know?
Right.
Dude, that's not fake.
And it's not going to be fluky if they do it again Friday night.
Right.
And that is a tough matchup for them.
Oh, absolutely. Any rematch.
Oregon played them tight. It was a 4-quarter game. You have a situation where you have these two quarterbacks both looking to be in the NFL draft. They're not, I think both teams will shut down the run. And so those guys got to make a handful of plays in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And Fernando made those last time. Dante Moore had a couple mistakes. They were late. He threw the 2 interceptions late.
Yes.
But, I keep saying Dan Lanning hasn't seen a fourth down he doesn't like. So it's not like they're going to not be aggressive in this game.
Hey, why not, right? I mean, why not get after it? I mean, Surratt and Omar Cooper and that the kid who beat Ohio State, I keep forgetting his name. Everybody's been down on him, but he had huge plays just the other night. I mean, for them. I mean, is it Reeder?
Becker.
Becker. Yeah. Becker. Where'd he come from?
They have 3 good receivers that can make play. He threw 3 touchdowns at 3 different receivers.
Yeah.
So, again, as far as the Big Ten goes, I mean, that would be an incredible story. Oregon finally breaking through and winning one would be an incredible story because they've had their swings. But if Dan Lanning, I mean, you look at their 2-year record in the Big Ten, their only losses are to who?
Yeah.
Indiana and Ohio State.
Exactly.
That's it. That's end of list.
Yeah. And Indiana's only 2 losses in 2 years are to Ohio State and Notre Dame, the 2 teams who played for the national championship last year.
So
that's crazy stuff. Now, I want to backtrack real quick before I forget the question, because, you've got a much sounder mind than I do in terms of recall of where exactly you were in your thought there. But going back to my poser idea, what I was saying about that Illinois win, for example, that's an example of the depth of the Big Ten winning, because everybody nationally wants to throw in there, well, it's just the top level of the Big Ten that's good. The rest of it's mediocre. Iowa's win showed that's not the case. They beat an SEC team, a team some people thought with just one other win would have been in the college football playoff. Illinois won a game like that. So it goes back to my original question. Can we now call that a tectonic shift in terms of what the true top conference is, as opposed to this conference, SEC, being the top conference and the Big Ten being an aspirer to be the top conference?
The bottom third of the Big Ten is still pretty rough. But
hey, look at the SEC.
I know. I'm just saying, like, when you get into Rutgers, Maryland, hopefully Pat can flip Michigan State a little bit. I will say that what the Big Ten has that the SEC doesn't have, in my opinion, is that the Big Ten is a mini NFL now.
If South Carolina played in the Big Ten every week, right, like it does in the SEC, would South Carolina have had a better record this year than in that case, no, it would not have. That was a team with all kinds of problems and stuff. But since they're playing invincibly on the road and take this lead over at Texas A&M, and Texas A&M has to scramble and come back, that's supposed to verify that's still a big time program with issues. Kentucky, Arkansas, I mean, those are three not very good football teams right now, or weren't this year, when in fact you put the proof to the pudding. Do I think Rutgers could play with them? I have no idea, for example. But I don't think it would be any worse than South Carolina, for example, in some of its games. I went to the South Carolina-Alabama game, and I saw South Carolina blow a lead in that game. And the point is, but that's where I also said Alabama's not among the elite this year.
Correct.
That is not an elite team. I watched them play. And so anyway, I know it's apples. It's not apples and oranges. It's really apples and apples. And I think for the last couple of years, the apples on the Big Ten tree have been a lot redder and juicier. What do you think?
I think the Big Ten has three what we can call elite programs right now, present tense: Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State. Those are elite programs now. Could it change for Indiana? Maybe. Oregon and Ohio State are established. I think the SEC has one elite program right now, Georgia.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And Georgia, their lives are different if they play that fourth quarter a little bit differently.
This year, Texas had a chance to join that argument.
I agree.
Fell short.
They're close.
Yeah, they're close.
But there.
How many times have we said that? Go ahead now.
And Ole Miss would be. Now, if Ole Miss wins the national championship, I'm going to sound really stupid, but I think had Lane stayed, the potential for them to be elite is there. Because you look at their record, they have the 7th best record. I looked this up before I came, so I'm not cheating. 6 programs that are power conference programs, including Notre Dame, have a better record than Ole Miss since Lane got there. Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Oregon.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So,
and plus the last couple of years, I mean, they've done a great job of getting their NIL act together big time, in my opinion. And that's why I'm curious. I mean, I think Lane's going to be dealing with a short fuse down there when it comes to the fans and the backers of LSU, because they put so much on that wagon, man.
Well,
with him.
I can ask you. So I'll give you a list of programs. You tell me who will be elite over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
At Big Ten, you can go Michigan, Penn State, USC, 2 with new coaches. Or would you take which one would be more able to make the playoff? One of those 3, or LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, or Texas. Let's say Texas.
Yeah. See, Oklahoma bothers me because Oklahoma, I think, has lost its, whatever you want to call it, its panache.
A little bit.
Texas,
closest one.
Texas has no excuse for not being elite, except they're not. They weren't this year when they were supposed to be. What's the other one?
Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama. I think of those 4, I would say Texas.
Yeah.
Because they got another year of Arch. They'll be good. But can they be elite?
Well, that Texas Ohio State game is huge again already. Looking forward to it. Alabama is interesting to me because they've recruited very well. They've been a pretty decent player in the transfer portal. I think DeBoer's sleeping on something there. The bottom line is there was a fall off. They lost a lot of big time talent when
Ty Simpson's leaving.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that a first round NFL quarterback?
No,
I don't think so.
No, sir.
So the Big Ten ones.
Yeah.
Who out of Michigan, Penn State, USC, who would you trust the most?
See, I mean, wait a minute. I've got Michigan, Penn State, and who? USC. I'm telling you, USC has made these incremental rises, and everybody keeps poo-pooing them because they don't like Lincoln Riley for whatever reason. I think USC is the sleeping giant of the 3, but I think all 3 of them will be a reawakening. I think Whittingham is a solid, big time head coach, but is he a caretaker? We're going to find out, right? And then Matt Campbell. Everybody's always even me. I'm guilty of raving about him over the years. To get anybody to come and play football in an NIL transfer portal era to Ames, Iowa,
right.
That there a lot of effort went there, but it's kind of like spinning your wheels a little bit. Now he's got a place that is attractive, that's been to the mountaintop several times, with backers, with alumni who want to be back to the mountaintop. That's the most important part of that. all of the schools you just named fit that bill.
Right.
So, man, I'm just looking immediate. I'm thinking Whittingham, if they get their act together up there and he cleans house in the proper way, and they're keeping their quarterback, which I think is important, although I'm not that shot in the rear end with him at the moment.
Right.
But I think he could be good. Maybe Michigan's the one.
Could be. I think it's between Michigan and USC.
I agree.
Off the rip. And USC's got a really good recruiting class coming in. They've got the quarterback. They've got to learn how to tackle. They still got to learn how to do that, especially at the end of games against TCU. But
basics.
Losing Danton Lynn hurts too. So
yeah,
but they're about the same. But they're not elite in the sense that those other three that I think as long as Kurt's there at Indiana, they're going to be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how can you not?
Yeah.
Oregon and Ohio State aren't going anywhere. And then in the SEC, it's like, if I was power ranking next 3 to 5 years, I'd say Georgia, Texas. Then I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I agree 100%. Real quick, what would be the ideal title game a week and a half from now?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and I still don't have a good answer. I would say for journalists, for us in the content creator business, it's Indiana versus Miami, I think. Because you Miami and
number one versus the team that a lot of people said shouldn't be in it.
And Miami has 5 national titles.
Correct.
And they're going to have all those guys on the sideline that were on the sideline.
Correct.
So we get to relive some of that. I think Mario's been very careful to say this isn't that. This is we're here, we're not back.
Yeah.
And he's really trying to lean into that. And then Indiana, most of the country would be rooting for Curt Cignetti and that story to come to an end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like it.
The one I picked was Indiana Ole Miss.
Wow.
Because I think Trinidad Chambliss is kind of
he's
ability to take this playoff over.
That's where Ohio State's got to get better. They've got to get, and Julian Sayin even said it after the game, you got to get better in making those improv plays. And when it's there, take it. You know what I mean?
Did that against Georgia. So let me ask you this: isn't that college football in 2025? If we have Indiana, like I said, second worst program ever among the power schools
against Ole Miss,
against the team whose coach left because he didn't think, because he wanted to take a job at somewhere else.
I want to grab this ring. Forget about this ring where I've got a solid grip.
Miami, Oregon would be fun.
They'd all be fun.
That's probably the good part is Miami, Oregon. I think for me, and I'm flying down there next week, and I think this is number, 10, which I try not to take that for granted that you get to cover all these games.
Still, it's cool, buddy.
The one I want to see would be Miami, Indiana.
Yeah, that would. Yeah,
Miami in their backyard, by the way.
In their backyard, yeah, Miami Gardens. Yeah, that's where they play their home games. But they've been pushing to get a campus stadium, right? If I remember correctly, but I've looked around Coral Gables before on the map. I go, where would you put it? It's pretty funny. There's not my daughter's company is based in Coral Gables, and I've always liked Coral Gables, but that's another story. Okay, Ohio State lost its last 2 games of the season. Big Ten championship game to Indiana, college football playoff quarterfinal to Miami. What'd you take from that? They went 12-0 in the regular season. Were number 1 in the polls, number 1 in the college football playoff committee rankings, final rankings, number 1 seed, of course, in the playoff. What's just your? I'm stammering because what do we take from that?
Well, I always start. I try to be a glass half full guy. You win 12 games. You are in this environment. I've tried this analogy out on the morning shows here in Columbus and others. With Bobby yesterday.
Yeah.
When Ohio State loses in the tournament, which it's been called now, it's not a playoff, it's a tournament. Mm-hmm. It feels like when Duke loses or North Carolina. And then, for the listeners, pick which one you like more out of Duke and North Carolina. I don't care. That's who they are. When they lose, people celebrate that aren't Ohio State fans.
Correct.
The big dog's out.
Correct.
And they're one of them. Georgia, same deal. Georgia's the other one where it's like, hey, they're out. They've won 2 in the last 5 years. I think it's a successful season. I think beating Michigan was very important this year and getting that streak out.
You mean like this?
Yeah, that's over. So that's not next year. The Indiana loss was a very good Indiana team, and I think Indiana is going to be in the conversation for years to come. So that was a welcome to that game moment. Ohio State had a ton of All-Americans. They bring back a lot of guys. They've 18 guys in the portal. I don't know what it's at today. That's a lot.
That's a lot
for Ohio State. That's a lot.
The only guy that's hanging out there to me is Quincy Porter.
Correct.
Getting in it because I really liked him and where he could get to in this wide receiver. But you've lost depth in the wide receiver room. You haven't lost an elite player.
And that, I agree. There wasn't a name in there other than him that I kind of looked at. I was like, oh, that's all right. This is part of the game now.
Yep. And it's a two-way street, in that regard.
And the first question I asked you off the air was, offensive coordinator, what's next?
Yeah.
That's the big one to me. I mean, who are you going to bring in to fit these pieces that they have coming back?
Well, that means there's got to be more shuffling going on in the coaching staff because they already brought in the wide receiver coach late of LSU to replace Brian Hartline in terms of the numbers on the staff. They're at 10 unless something's breaking as you and I talk here. So Ryan Day, he rarely sits just totally pat.
Mm-hmm.
He wants at least one new card,
right.
For one of put it on the table games analogy. I like the idea, for example, of Brian Daboll, former head coach of the New York Giants. Number one, I've met him before. Great guy. He never met me before. Treated me okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think personality's got to be part of it in terms of being a college football coach, because you have to still go out and get the players in some form or fashion. Plus, I like that sprinkling of professional, not just approach, but professional scheme, professional way of looking at games. I like that. I've liked it from Matt Patricia this year on defense. So, are they keeping Matt Patricia? I interviewed him briefly as he was leaving the stadium down at the Cotton Bowl. And he basically said, his family was sort of looking forward to being in one place more than a year.
Right.
So we'll see if he sticks around. It's kind of a two-way street there because definitely Ohio State should thank him for its services, but he should thank Ohio State also be beholding Ohio State for basically resurrecting his career.
His stock hasn't been this high since probably the height of when he was at New England.
Yeah, he really got no strong feelers from NFL teams this time a year ago. That's why he ended up still in the basket there when Ryan Day was looking for a defensive coordinator after Jim Knowles left in the middle of January after the national championship. So, but I really like Matt Patricia. I like what he's brought to the program. And plus it would make Ohio State even more attractive if you can sell them on the fact that, the place where you aspire to play, ladies and young men, in 2 or 3 or 4 years, we've got a coach fresh from there who can tell you everything there is you need to know about playing in the National Football League and help you get there with some thoughts, et cetera, some schemes. So I like that. I don't mean like Adam King just go crazy about Brian Daboll, but he makes as much sense as anybody to me. What do you think?
Yeah, he'd be all right.
But here's what's got to happen. They've got to figure out some way, somehow, because Julian's saying people forget he was one of the more highly rated dual threat quarterbacks coming out of high school in Carlsbad, California. He was one, but they didn't really get that from him this year. And boy, did he get crunched by Miami early in that game, which of course changes your perspective, but they've got to get that incorporated back into this offense. You've got to play, despite the fact you have kind of a pro approach, you've got to play in college football. It calls for a guy to make plays with his feet on occasion.
Going to need to see that more.
Trinidad Chambliss is a great example of where that can take you.
Well, Ohio State's had those guys.
The scramble back to the 2-yard line and then play the other night was crazy. Agreed?
Oh, I mean, the series of plays, not just that one.
But just that one was like, what?
What are we doing?
Not that you have to have that. You got to have a guy that if the defense is giving you, if it's 3rd and 5 and the defense is giving you 10 yards, you go get 6.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
You got to have that guy.
And Brian has big time program experience. He was at Alabama, obviously. I mean, so the expectations when you coach at a place like that. The expectations are the same at Ohio State. I think I said this on this show before. Ohio State's coordinators are probably among, if not the most scrutinized people in college football.
Yes.
Now that Nick Saban's gone.
Yes.
Because before it was the two guys working for Nick Saban.
Yep.
And that will continue. I mean, that's why Matt Patricia, I mean, you can go back and read all the takes, and I don't remember what I wrote, honestly, when he was hired. That's kind of a gamble.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Chip
See, I texted Ryan as soon as he, made the announcement that I thought that was a home run hire. Right. I thought I liked it. There was some baggage with Matt Patricia that had to be dealt with. It was dealt with. Matt Patricia, by the way, in terms of dealing with us, I've rarely met a guy. I can't even think of a guy I like better than him. There are a lot of guys I like as much as him over the last 40 years. But my goodness, I mean,
you've seen a lot of assistants come in and out of that.
What a gentleman. Yeah.
And I think Ryan hasn't missed much.
Nope.
So, I mean, he didn't miss with Chip.
Nope.
Didn't miss with
Knowles.
I don't think he did.
He didn't miss with Knowles. They won a national championship.
You can't say he missed. I mean, they won a national title.
No.
So
miss. That was a home run.
Some people would disagree, but I don't. I think they've hit there.
What I liked about Patricia was he came in and enhanced what was already in place. Knowles brought in kind of a different way of looking at stuff, and kind of backed off even some of that because he didn't really need to do a lot of the tricks of the trade that he was doing at Oklahoma State, for example, to get him there. He had talent. Now take that talent and put it where it can be best be utilized. I thought for the most part, that's what Matt Patricia did. Yeah, they had some plays. Jeff Snook's real mad because they don't blitz enough. I just go, well, that's this guy's way of doing things. You know what I mean? And
if you don't count the pick six against Miami,
correct.
They basically allowed 17 points or less in every game this year.
Correct. That gives any team a chance. Now, in my opinion, the not elephant in the room, the maybe gorilla in the room that needs to be figured out is offensive line. The offensive line, right guard, especially that position, let them down this year. And they never got settled there, even though they started Tegra Shabola for those many games again. They never, that never got figured out. And Josh Padilla went in and played, in my opinion, really well in the second half for the most part in those 2 touchdown drives. People forget. People thought it was an all-day thumping by Miami. It was not.
No.
I mean, it was 17-14 in the fourth quarter. My point is they've got to get the offensive line because against Indiana, for the most part, dominated. I'm talking about if you take the whole balance of the game, dominated the defensive line against Ohio State's offensive line. Miami did the same thing with different ways of doing it. They still got it done. That's got to get back to the level it was at the end of the year, the previous season.
I agree. And
that was a difference in my opinion.
Well, I had somebody text me, we did all the All-American teams and it was All-American season, and Ohio State, we had so many on ours, but we didn't have an offensive lineman on there.
Right.
And that's the first time I can remember. Typically we have at least one, either first or second team.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people thought maybe Saraville should have been on there just based on.
Was he on a third team somewhere? He might have been.
He might have been.
But, the guys that were.
Left guard. Luke Montgomery. He was on somebody's offensive.
He was probably team. Yeah. So point being, they weren't well represented. Obviously, Ruben Bain made an impact in that game. He's made an impact on the entire college football playoff.
Not just him either.
Miami has 12 sacks. Miami has a really good defensive front. Mario, you can criticize Mario however you want about some in-game decisions he's had over the years, but he knows how to build an offensive and defensive line.
Yes, he does.
And he's done that at Miami. There's no question.
Remember when he brought that team in 2021?
Did he have Sewell with Oregon?
I can't remember. Their best player didn't play in that game. He was their best lineman. Yeah.
Kayvon.
Yeah. He didn't even get to play in that game because he was banged up. So
he had lines at Oregon too. Yes. He knows how to do that. And that could be a difference in these semifinal games as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the position that's going to get the most scrutiny in the offseason. How do they do that? How do they rebuild that? Because you have everything else. You have your quarterback, you have receivers. That's never going to be in short supply. You're going to have talented players on the defensive side of the ball. I'm trying to think how many first rounders they're going to have in the draft. It's going to be a big number.
Yeah.
So you ask me, like, as a whole, I don't look at this season as a disappointment. I look at it like you would start to look at, Ohio State fans can ask Duke and North Carolina basketball game fans.
Yeah.
How's that feel when you don't win the national title with a team that could have?
Tough to repeat. It is tough to repeat. Georgia doing it with a quarterback they tried to run off 3 times, Stetson Bennett, is still amazing to me.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I just remember watching their defense play against Ohio State and C.J. Stroud, and I'm just going, boy, this, this is not a great defense, but they got to play TCU the next game.
Correct.
So they got by the skin of their teeth. Hey, before we get to my Wednesdays with Matt Wilhelm, because it's either Mondays with Matt, if we don't get filled up on Monday, or it's Wednesdays with Wilhelm, which, by the way, is another extended interview, and I hope you folks enjoy it. I meant to promo it earlier in the game, but having a guest the stature of Bill Bender on, just kind of I froze in the headlights there, and just with Bill Bender, the spotlight really. Wanted to ask you this: do you like where we are in the college football playoff realm? We had Ross Bjork on Monday, and he threw out a number there, which was interesting to me because I basically said this year 8 would have been plenty for this playoff, 8 teams, but that would have meant who would have been left out? Would Miami have been left out? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, boy, that would have been a mistake. But they would have been the only one of the Final Four that would have been left out, right? Yeah. 16 is the number he came up with, which I don't understand why anybody would go from 12 to 24. 16 is the number. You've been covering this college football almost as long as I have.
No.
In your opinion, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to give even though he has no gray hair, may be like Saban. I don't know if you're coloring it or not.
No, I am certainly not. Not yet.
I'm just messing with you. There comes a time when you had, like I did, like 25 years ago, my hair got gray. What is the ideal number now that you've seen this for 2 years now, the college football playoff? I do believe it's more than 8 now. Even though I said on Monday, I still thought 8 was the ideal number. That way you don't have as much griping about teams that don't get in. You have 3 or 4 teams that thought it should get in. But if you go to 16, there will be 8 or 10 teams that still think they ought to be in. You've been covering this game for a long time. Let's put it that way. Before we get to my conversation with Matt Wilhelm, give me a number that you think fits the modern game. And by that, let me throw this thought in there. I understand 16 instead of 8 from this vantage point. It makes more money.
It will.
It makes more money. I think it's important in this age to not discount the fact you need money anymore. And it's right out there in front of us now. Even college administrators, I mean, probably Ross Bjork spends 80 or 90% of his time chasing the dollars from donors, et cetera, as he does being the athletic director running sports, and maybe that may be too high a percentage. He may disagree and say it's higher.
Right.
But the bottom line is, you got to have the money. It is definitely a cash cow. Agreed.
8 would be the ideal number, but I understand if playoffs never contract.
Yeah.
They're like, the NFL's not going back
all
to
inclusive.
12. No, they
all inclusive resort.
They only go up. And my advice would be to go to 16 and stop.
Yes.
Right there. And
that's more than 1/10 of your
more
your
than
teams.
10%.
Yeah. 130 teams.
I put the first 2 rounds on campus. It's the easiest thing in the world.
First two. Interesting. He kind of hinted at that too. He liked that idea.
And then once you get to the round of 4, we can rotate those New Year's Day 6 bowls. So I do like the Rose Bowl. I do like the Sugar Bowl. I do like the Peach Bowl, etc. I've been to most of those.
Oh yeah.
Cotton Bowl.
From our vantage point, those are buffo. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
We're still people who cover Ohio State are still in mourning the fact we didn't get to go back to the Fiesta Bowl this year.
The Fiesta Bowl. How could I forget them?
Oh my goodness.
Scott does a great job there.
Yes.
So point being, and I talked to Bobby about this week as well, is like the downside of that as a player and a coach is if you're in a quarterfinal and you're doing all the media obligations for the Rose Bowl, and then you're doing all the media obligations for the Fiesta Bowl, and then again for the title game, I think they should only have to do that twice.
Yes.
Like they did in the old playoff. You could handle that in a 14 playoff. So play the first 2 rounds on campus so you can have your normal routine. The Packers and Bears aren't doing 5 days of media obligations before their game at Soldier
There'd be a little
Field.
Extra added, but it would be, you could meld it in better.
Right. And I think obviously if you go out to the Rose Bowl or you go to the Cotton Bowl, you want to experience those things, but just do it for 2 rounds. The first 2 rounds on campus, first of all, the campus games have been great. Ohio State's been in the playoff twice. They've got to experience one campus game that they would not have been able to experience had they beat Michigan that year.
Yeah, true.
Like they would still be, you'd be like, why? What is the reward for being a top 4 team? The reward should be you should get a home game. I'm not saying Miami, Ohio State's, it would have been a little bit a different game if it's in Columbus. Texas Tech, Oregon would have been a different game in Lubbock. Dan Lanning even said they should have played it in Lubbock.
Of course.
Instead of a half.
He's a college football guy.
Instead of a half-empty Orange Bowl.
Amen. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
And the idea is, but my big question before we move on to my weekly sojourn with Matt Wilhelm, Wednesdays with Wilhelm this week. Does the Rose Bowl fall out of it?
I hope not.
Only because, the big gripe about the Rose Bowl right now in terms of being able to host a pure championship game is the fact they don't have suites. They don't have the number of suites they need and all this kind of baloney, all this kind of stuff. My point is, though, if you lose in a first-round game of the round of 16, could you still then go to a bowl game to keep the other bowl games, the other, like you said, let's say take the top 6 bowl games. You still got to keep them sound, don't you? When they're not hosting a semifinal game.
Or you could.
And how many kids would opt out of that? By the way,
a lot. That's the problem.
But if you played the first round games within 9 or 10 days of the end of the regular season, right? Instead of the league championship games, get rid of them. You would be getting to the semifinals by January 1.
So you need to follow the Pop-Tarts Bowl theory. The Pop-Tarts Bowl is popular not just because of the Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
They've been good games.
Yes.
Georgia Tech BYU was a hell of a football game.
Yeah.
Citrus Bowl, Cheez-It Bowl. That was a good game. Michigan, Texas. I watched that one. We need probably fewer bowl games. We need to knock that. So,
but you just named 2 that are off the rack that you kind of go, whatever. But for the teams that are involved, they have most of the teams that play in those games have no chance of being in the college football playoff. Slim to none.
Right.
And it gives them a reward. I think a lot of those teams still embrace that trip. Ohio University.
Oh, yeah, we would take
what a win.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, you're just going to do away with that because, because I've heard the talking heads talk about that. They keep looking at things from an NFL standpoint. And I go, this is not the NFL. Still isn't, by the way. And so you've got to have rewards, I think, still hanging out there for some teams, et cetera.
I think the number could be around 50 bowl teams total. And you could also cut back on the 7-5 power conference team. We won't, but you could.
Yeah.
And then when you have that number around 50, the Bulls are compelling. You mentioned Ohio. Yeah, I watched the whole game. It was great.
Yeah.
Hauser did a great job. By the way, Bishop Hartley High School guy found out after that I was probably on the same football field with him at some point around 1997. And he probably knocked me on my butt, by the way.
Yeah.
So very happy for Coach Hauser and that win that he had. Very good linebacker at Hartley. But no, I see it both ways. I think 16, if we go to 16, some questions about those bowl games and it's going to be uncomfortable. And that's the tipping point.
Yeah. But my point is, if you go to 16, it would replace the conference championship games. A round of 16 which would be 8 games. And I could see the losers getting to play in an extra game at the end of this. If they, if you half your team opts out, well, shame on you. You know what I mean? Pay these players for playing in these bowl games over and above what they're getting now from a revenue sharing standpoint. There could be a pool of money definitely founded for that and keep some things whole. Keep something like college football has always been, is all I'm saying, or like it's been for a very, very, very long time. Bill Bender, thank you very much for joining the Tim May Show again, my man.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on.
You know how much I totally enjoy this. And, man, I'd like to make it a more often experience, but we'll see what happens there. And by the way, our heart goes out to Clay Hall. Agree?
Yeah, I want to say that. Like Clay, he's been a guy that I look at as a standard. He might not remember this, but I do. When I was at Ohio University, we had to interview a local personality, call them, and this is a really long time ago, so I'm pulling this out. I called Clay. This was up 2000, around that era, 2000, 2001. He is an institution in Columbus. He means a lot.
Yep.
And he's an unquestionably nice person, as anybody who's lost a parent, which I have. my heart goes out to you, Clay. I can't wait to see you again, and my condolences to you and your family.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get now to my Wednesdays with Wilhelm, and because we hit some pretty interesting points here. This is going to be a longish Tim May show. Sorry about that, but I think both conversations are compelling. So, without further ado, let's get to my conversation Wednesdays with Wilhelm.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure Wednesdays with Wilhelm might have even more panache here as we wind down the 2025/2026 barely. No, never made it to 2026. 2025 Ohio State football season. Matt Wilhelm, welcome once again to the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. And let's just get right into it, man, because you've been a busy man the last couple of days. I mean, you took your son Mason down to Ohio State to enroll early and step into the whatever it is going on at Ohio State at this moment. A team that's used to, well, at least last year was used to getting ready for 2 more games in the season. Suddenly the season was done, and now the guys are leaving in the transfer portal. The new guys are coming in. Mason Wilhelm, one of those guys, an interior offensive lineman who hopes to lead Ohio State back to the glory that it enjoyed just a year ago. But I think I said welcome. I didn't let you say something to me. Go ahead.
That's all right. Well, thanks for being. Thanks for having me as always. And again, it is an odd feeling for, I'll say, for the Wilhelm family. I think for you and the media pundits to be in this situation. I think it's also a weird spot to be in for Buckeye Nation, because the aspirations, as they always are at Ohio State, are to compete and or to win a national championship, or to get as damn close as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think everybody walks away from this football game against Miami now a little bit over a week ago, and is just, you start to get really nitpicky on some things that didn't go our way. And I think the one thing that to me was just probably the reason why we lost, amongst many others, is the pick six. And I'm gonna lean on that, and I'm not gonna blame anybody for it. Right? It was a great play by the kid. I don't know if there's maybe they saw a similar formation at some point in ACC play for him to jump it that way, or we have shown some semblance of that formation or an alignment maybe with Jeremiah on the line of scrimmage as opposed to off the line of scrimmage, and that kind of slot, inside receiver spot, and that tight end motion out at one point for him to jump it the way he did. I'm going to go just slightly even, one play before, and it's been all over social media, and it's a screenshot that people have shared about the miss on Max Clare, the play before on the crossing route.
Yep.
With what looks like Julian Sands staring him down. And again, as you and I kind of talk ball, a few minutes before we jump on air, it's like you start seeing ghosts when you've had pressure on you throughout a football game. You start seeing
crushed.
Yeah, when you've been crushed a couple of times, when you start to see, and again, Miami and all white, when you see flashes of white, with your eyes downfield and you don't want to get crushed again, you hold that football. And again, you see it at the high school level, the most, you see it in college. You don't see it all that often in the pros, because those guys are pros for a reason, and they've played a significant amount of football. And I think that's in some cases, we may have had, although Julian Sand played his way into the as a Heisman finalist, and he was very, very good all year long. The one caveat that we have to continue is, and I'm sure I didn't listen to every word Ryan Day has said, is he's still a redshirt freshman. And yes, he played, started 13, 14 games for us this year. He's still a redshirt freshman. Miami and those 2 pass rushers are probably going to both be first round picks. They had a great game plan. I think you and I talked about it the week prior, or the week, the few times after the Indiana game, that the recipe for disruption of our offensive line and of our offensive passing game was out there now.
Yep.
I think it's also, something that, Coach Day and his staff have to look at as, okay, the recipe is out there. How come we, what over the course of a couple of weeks, say 9 to 10 days when we didn't know who we were playing, and although Texas A&M was going to be a great front too. And then even this, 7 to 10 days when we did know who we were playing and it was going to be Miami, why? And I think that's the one thing that I did listen to Coach Day is like, it's my fault. We weren't ready or we started slow, and it's my job to go get that fixed.
Yeah.
And so I think collectively, while not ready for the season to be over, anybody, that's me, that's you, that's Buckeye Nation, that's these players, that's these coaches. I think the gift in this is, exactly what you need to fix to be able to position yourself to make a very similar run as you did this year, next year. And again, just the way that, as you said, with Mason going down there, a little forward thinking as well, just looking at a very, very tougher schedule next year than we had this year. But that said, Julian saying, 1 year removed from, 1 year of experience, more experience, Jeremiah in his last, Brandon Ennis, again. So long story short, not super excited. I do think the fact that, and this is the one thing, from a fan standpoint, I think the fact that the game was on New Year's Eve and it would have been an amazing way to ring in the new year with a win, you kind of glazed over the loss because the ball dropped, 75 minutes after the loss, and you kind of transitioned very quickly to a different level of enjoyment to ring in the new year with your family and friends. And then you got stuck watching, 3 okay football games, 1 excellent football games, but 2, kind of like blowout type of football games the next day. And I just find myself, I probably feel a little bit more down in the dumps had we played on January 1st and lost, because I would carry that into the new year, where I feel like the slate was wiped clean because of the celebration that happened soon thereafter for New Year's as a Buckeye fan with the loss just a few hours before.
Yeah. Obviously, you weren't down in Dallas.
I was not.
Number one. Number two, dude, I was waiting. I've been waiting all year. I've been waiting for a while for somebody to jump the wide screen. Call it whatever you want. I call it the wide screen. And then you take the tight end and you run him that direction as an ornament, a moving ornament, as Urban Meyer might call it. And that kid was jumping that from the get-go. Yep. I don't know why Ohio State hasn't tried to jump similar things, lean the coverage that away in case, you do get blocked. Jeremiah Smith anticipated a move by the defender because you could tell he was coming. His one responsibility on that play is not let that guy get a jump like that if he does come. And that's well thought out in terms of, but it's still a man-to-man situation. And if you guess wrong, that guy's in there. Number two, the ball was thrown behind Brandon Ennis and not in low. And so it was kind of a misfire by Julian Sayin to begin with. But then on top of that, I keep reminding people that play in a coach's mind and even the player's mind is just a long pitch out, know? I mean, it's just a catch and throw it.
If you recall, Tim, when I talked about, Malachi Toney and how they were going to use him when we were on with Jeff, I thought those bubbles, that extension of the run game and getting him the football in space on the edges was a lot of how Miami was going to attack us.
Yes.
So, yes, an extension of the run game. You think that's a completion? Even if it goes for, he catches it and the kid makes a great play and it's for a negative, and Jeremiah does the same thing. He catches it and it's a negative 2-yard loss, or a tackle at the line of scrimmage, or Ennis makes the first guy miss and gets 4. That's not supposed to score.
No.
That's a turnaround and hand it off type of mentality. Against a good football team, if they defend it right, it should go for, a couple of yards or no gain, which is what you thought. You survive it and you move into third down.
Yeah.
I don't believe in if you were to talk to, either Coach Hartline or Fessler or Coach Day, 100 times out of 100, they ever thought calling that play, or when they practice that play, it turns into a pick six. And this is the other thing that when I say this, to kind of on that same mindset is, and this is where, and I was talking to a buddy about another Ed's football dad yesterday about this stuff, is as you dig deeper. And again, I don't know the role play of the flow of Ohio State's practice, but what happens sometimes, and I'm speaking about at the high school level, is and again, speaking of it at St. Ed's, like we go good on good, maybe one period, maybe a second period to finish practice good on good, which means our starting defense, our starting offense. Okay. The other, it's like you do some walkthrough stuff, you do some on-air stuff, full speed on-air stuff. Then you do, some 9-on-7 stuff. That's usually, but it's your practice squad guys, or I'll say your younger guys. And as you've seen, like, the black stripes that have come off in bowl time, you've seen guys wearing Miami uniforms, Miami numbers, right? To depict the look of the player that you're going to see and wear. For Carson Hinsman to make protection calls and line calls, and Julian to see, to ID different things. That's the one thing that I'll go back to. And it's not just about this play. This is conceptually, because it's the same thing at St. Ed's. Is like when you go good on scout team, or scout look, that play works 10 times out of 10, or the 15 times that you ran it in practice against your scout look.
Yeah.
Jeremiah dominates that guy on the line of scrimmage. The ball's thrown perfectly to Ennis. The tight end follows through with his motion. He goes and kicks out the corner or wraps through and gets up on support. Ennis gets the ball, takes 2 steps around Jeremiah and gets 8 yards, and then he keeps running, right? Because everybody just tags off on him. Yeah. So there's sometimes in plays like that, there's a misconception, when you run that against a scout look, which is, again, and at this juncture, an inferior opponent in practice, which it has to be, and then you get out there against, in front of 70,000 people in Dallas, Texas, against a really good football team who might have prepped for that play, and they play the play.
Clearly.
And it's like, bam, a little bit of a misthrow, right? A late kind of like shuffle by Jeremiah. The motion was kind of irrelevant because the guy just, snuck inside and jumped it, and that changed the game. That was, you took a field goal in theory, off the board as well, because you're down in the red area. You would have kicked the field goal had you not got the first down, and you give them 7 points, and the complete shift, of that, given how good Miami was playing on defense and how, I don't want to say inadequate, but how herky-jerky our offense was. It was good at times, and it was very stagnant at times.
Yep.
That fully affected our ability to have to then, from that point forward, have to play perfect against a very, very good defense.
Yeah, and the dynamic going on there was Ohio State was down 7-0 at the time, and they had just hit the long pass to Jeremiah Smith, and you're feeling, wow, what a bounce back. Now they got their mojo going. And then, like you said, you miss the guy. You don't get the ball to a guy wide open over the middle on one play. And then the very next play, it's 6 the other way, and you're down 14-0. And like you said, now you're in a hole against a really good football team, not against Rutgers, And and here's the thing, real quick. I wanted to touch on this before we move on. The last 2 games of the season, Julian Sayin was not on the pitcher's mound, so to speak, throwing the ball to the plate. He was on Broad Street or High Street with people crossing and cars coming at you and stuff, trying to throw the ball to guys on the curb or in the middle of in the median or whatever. All kinds of activity going on, and just a straight up thing here. It's not so much that the offensive line, I would say the offensive line wasn't good enough. It was more of they weren't used. It's kind of like going to bat against a little league pitcher and then going to bat against Nolan Ryan. They're throwing the same pitches, but these pitches are coming fast.
Here's the best
They're
way
coming
to say it
fast.
To not steal. I'm not even going to use your words. It's not that the offensive line wasn't good enough. Okay. And here's where it really started to affect Julian. The offensive line was not consistent enough.
That's the word.
And there's a level of trust between an offensive line and a running back in protection and a quarterback to stand in that pocket or and to know where, the offensive line know where Julian likes to escape. So you force the guys the other way so he can, keep a play alive. And I think that's and in saying that, the consistency is on 2 levels as well. It's consistent with their play. And I'll say the other thing that, we probably benefited from last year on this run was the consistency of the lineup, right? because we have
after it got reset about 3 times. But go ahead.
That's what I mean. Well, that's what I mean. The Josh Simmons injury and Donovan Jackson moving around. Then you lose McLaughlin. So it wasn't so much because of their play. It was because of some of the injuries, right?
Yeah.
And then when you had it, and they were rolling, right? And they're rolling. And that's the one thing that I'll always say before I get back on that is like, even going back to my NFL days, when you talk about like, what was it about that season? I go, dude. Because I've been on a 14-2 team that lost after a first round bye in San Diego, and I've also limped our way into the playoffs at 10-6 and went on the road 4 weeks in a row and won a Super Bowl. Right?
Yeah.
Is you got to be, and this is the challenge for coaches, and I think that's why you see Dan Lanning talk about the timing of not just the timing of the portal, but like the national championship game should be played January 1st. I think it's also why we see now the teams that have the first round bye are 1-7. Indiana is the only team, to win that first round bye, and they did it obviously in an amazing fashion against Alabama. But there's tweaks to the rules, and so you got to be playing well in December. And I'm using kind of NFL terms, like you got to be playing well in December, right? You have to be healthy to be able to go make that run, right? Because having your best players, is vital for you. The guys that are especially making all the money now, these guys are making money too at the college level. And here's the other thing: you got to get lucky. You got to get lucky with your draw. You got to get lucky on a catch. You got to get lucky on a flag. You got to get lucky on a no call. You got to get lucky on a special teams play. You got to get lucky on a doink on a field goal that bounces in or bounces out to keep your season alive. It's just you just don't see someone play clean with their backups and catch no breaks and do something great in football, because there's just so many intangibles. And I think that's the consistency of the offensive line and the consistency of the players playing along the offensive line just led to some of probably the herky-jerkiness in the run game and the herky-jerkiness in the protection, which is then also falls into lap of Julian saying being comfortable with and playing the way he did all season long.
Yeah, I remember you and Jeff and I chopped up this game big time the day after. And but one thing I wanted to ask you about is the last 2 games of the year, Indiana played games up front and got penetration, but also got hesitation. When you have hesitation, you get penetration when it comes to the way Indiana approaches their defensive front, but always hell-bent to get upfield. I'm talking about Indiana's defensive front is. Miami played pretty straight up for the most part. Yeah, they threw some wrinkles in there, of course, but they played pretty straight up of we're throwing fastballs every pitch. Yes. Handle a fastball, because one guy breaking the barrier, and suddenly their hermetically sealed pocket that June was used to most of the year has been broken. Now he has to make decisions on the move. And like we talked about that on the Max Clare thing, for example, the play before the pick six, just as he was probably ready to pull the trigger, boom, there was a guy in his face.
Yes.
And so you, of course, human reaction is to survive, live to throw another day. But my point is, not every team is equipped to do what Miami did with this defensive front.
Right.
Because they might have the idea and the desire, but they don't have the actual physical capability of the players involved doing it. Because Miami had 4 different players just create havoc.
And Tim, you know what? That leads me down a different.
But wait a minute, let me finish.
Oh, go ahead, finish.
But that for and Mason's going to be one of the guys learning. Ohio State, Tyler Bowen, they've got to address that, in some form or fashion over the next 8 months. Because it's going to be coming in Texas, in 9 months. Well, it's going to be coming at you, baby.
Here's where I go with your statement, and I think it, again, it directly reflects to what you're making your point about this next wave of players, right? It has a lot to do with with recruiting, with Ryan Day, with Mark Pantoni, especially in the portal, and it has a lot to do. This is what I jump to when I hear what you say is roster construction.
Yeah.
And I think, and then I'll transition back to kind of like, and I'm not trying to say we're all that different, but I mean, we are, but like what Urban created, a roster was constructed a specific way when Urban Meyer was there.
Yep.
And I think, Ryan Day took that over and slowly is putting his spin on roster construction. But for a school like Ohio State, it's like, and I say this on a multi-level to be able to check all your boxes and hit all your goals is, your roster has to be constructed a specific way to play in the Big Ten and win in the Big Ten, which I think our roster is constructed perfectly to go do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Take another step forward. Given the past 4 years against that team up north, your roster has to kind of be constructed a specific way to play and beat that team up north, right? Because they're built a certain way. Okay. Now, at another level, Indiana, number one team in the country. What do they do schematically, and how do you build a roster to go beat Indiana if you're going to see them in Indianapolis, every year for the next 5 years or 3 of the next 5? That's with Mason and these dudes and everybody that's left and in the portal and whatever. And then even furthermore, the last step is like, for us to make a run and go win the national championship, we've got to build a roster, okay? Because I know that leading into our football game, Mario Cristobal was build a roster. You know what I mean? Not build a roster to go win the ACC. It was build a roster to go win a national championship.
Yep.
And I think so. Beat Michigan, beat Indiana, okay, because they're the cat's meow right now in the Big Ten, a number one team in the country with an amazing head football coach who has an identity and has literally thrust it into Bloomington, Indiana, and they're responsive to it. But now and I know that you can say the SEC bowl record is what it is this year and what it was last year, and when's the last time the SEC won a national championship. But still, like that down south level play of football is something different. It ain't Big Ten football.
Yeah.
We might be getting the wins right now, but the one-on-one matchups that you have to win within the game, do we have the players to win those one-on-one matchups more than they do?
Yeah.
Do we have the athletes to play with the twitch of Miami? Because we saw it firsthand. Do we have the athletes to play with the twitch of Bama or Ole Miss, or Georgia, right? Because that's what, and I know that I'm not trying to say that we don't. I'm just going to say the mentality is, and it goes back to my opening statement, is it's very clear what we need to get better at and where the improvement as a football team has to come with.
Yeah.
And I think we got away with it. And the opponents, again, we don't choose the opponents at the Big Ten schedules, right? It's like, so next year we're going to play a tough schedule. This year we play an easy schedule. I don't even know what 2027 looks like. Who knows or cares? It's like, line them up, knock them down, right?
Yeah.
But if you're Ryan Day and you're Mark Pantoni and you're these coaches, it's like, not only do you build a roster that way, but that's Mick Marotti when he has his claws in these guys. And that's not to say that he doesn't do this already, but it's like now and I just know I know the little bit that I know about Mick, or the little bit that I have as a motivator is, I use your failures as a play. And I was that as a coach this year, at St. Edward High School. It's like, oh, last year we went 5-5 and made this amazing run in the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. I go, but you guys lost to a public school in Columbus, Ohio. And I just want to jab at them, right? About not being good enough, and find that internal switch and that internal fire and that nastiness, in a
There's
team
the word
that becomes the identity of the football team and into the future. And I think that's the one thing. I'm not trying to say that they don't have it. I'm not. I'm just going to say you need it for 60 minutes or 48 minutes, however long damn quarters are, to go win a national championship because of the teams that you're going to see on that run.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The offensive line, the last 2 games of the year, the offensive line was in a street fight with nasty dudes. And about 7 times out of 10, they didn't handle it. And by that, I'm talking about as a group, not individually. Every offensive lineman.
To be honest with you, Tim, they kind of took turns. So it is absolutely as a group.
Exactly. Ain't that funny? But to me, it's like, that's the one. And here's the thing, going into the season, I had 2 questions about this football team. I thought the defense was going to be good. And then with Matt Patricia, it was damn good. But the question about depth at defensive tackle was the big question. I thought they kind of answered that. I thought defensive tackle played well, even in a depth standpoint. But the other question was right guard. Who was going to be right guard on a consistent basis? And it was so inconsistent there, even when they made the change, Gabe Van Sickle gets the start, and it's not knocking him, but man, you got to just watch the video. And then Josh Padilla went in. Boy, beginning of the second half, the offensive line looked pretty damn good against Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 straight touchdown drives or whatever it was. They're back in the game at 17-14. But then everything goes in cycles, right? Then Miami cranked it back up again, and we all saw what happened. I hate so much most of the time. Most people know me this, and it makes some people mad. I hate talking about spilt milk because there's nothing you can do about it except clean it up, right?
Yeah.
And move on. They don't let you unspill it. So the people who second guess A, B, C, and D about a play call or something, those are the people I have problems with because the play can't be fixed. But the little things that led up to you getting beat on that play can be fixed.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. So I think that's and I'm not trying to say this is in any way, shape, or form, the reason why, but you got to figure like there were some things in flux toward again, and I'm not saying we're the only
No,
team
you're right.
dealing with it, in this window where, and I know it's like Brian Hartline was the play caller all year, then he's, leaving midweek to go, interview and go other places. And, that just naturally becomes a distraction, right?
Yeah.
Ole Miss has handled the Lane Kiffin shit amazingly well, right?
Yeah.
Your head coach, the guy that you've come to this school for, has gone and he's stolen half your coaching staff. And Goulding comes in and just rallies the troops. And, so it can be done on both sides. I just think there are a lot of intangibles that Ohio State dealt with when the stakes were the highest.
Yes.
The offensive line, the who along the offensive line, kind of kept you, on your toes. And like, no player wants to be subbed out and come in cold and have to be a dude on the big stage. Yes, everybody wants to play, but that's a lot of pressure in a big spot, and that's a lot of trust by the coach. That's a lot of trust in yourself to make that change. I think the Austin Searveld, injury just added another domino that had to fall along the offensive line. He's been, gosh, All-American by some accounts. I think, first or second team All Big Ten, and like one pressure given up and no sacks all year. Boy, would you love to have that guy against those Miami pass rushers for a full game
for 60.
Yeah, and then you're just bringing in a guy cold off the bench, to handle Ruben Bain. You know what I mean? It's like it's just. I hate to say it. I know it's cliche. It just wasn't our year, or wasn't in the cards for us. But I will also not take some Mason's going to University of Toledo. Who cares? But there's identifiable things that you can go out and fix. And now you have 8 months to do it, right?
Yeah.
We've got not maybe as much money as Texas Tech, but we got, we have the resources.
Oh, they got the resources, man.
The culture, the brotherhood, the development, is not going to change because, again, we'll probably have double-digit dudes, depending on who declares for the NFL draft, drafted, right? So that'll make us a lot like Bama in the Saban era, a lot like the Kirby Smart era at Georgia. So that's the echelon that we want to play and recruit and develop at. So nothing's going to change, but there's the identifiable things that you have, again, as I said, 8-9 months to go work on. And I think the one like linchpin to that is that we're all kind of like waiting in the wings for is, what does Ryan Day do at offensive coordinator? Because we've talked so much about, the offense and some of the good and some of the deficiencies along the offensive line. Tyler Bone ain't going nowhere, and there's, the developmental dudes are coming. Not to say they're going to be anybody along this class is going to be plug and play starters, right? It's Ohio State. They've got 3-star, 4-star, 5-star dudes ahead of them, but it's and then the functionality of that relationship with Ryan Day, Billy Fessler, and new offensive coordinator. Does he have the autonomy to run his stuff? Is it going to be a blended version of what Ryan Day likes, along with what the new guy brings?
Got to get the run game, though. The running game's got to get addressed. Agreed.
Well, you're going to have the horses. There's no doubt about the horses. You know what I mean? The James Peoples leaving in the portal, and I know that I think he was on a trip to Happy Valley. So, he's, going with what he knows and staying in the Big Ten potentially. But, you're going to have Isaiah West for the next 2 years. You're going to have Bo Jackson for the next 2 years. You're going to have a slew, of 3-4 dudes right behind them, pushing them competitively, for snaps in a football game. And again, I also think the one thing we haven't addressed is, we've talked a lot, here and there. This little session together is about the offensive line, but Tegra Chabot is the only one that's hit the portal. Nobody's made a decision about the NFL. and no one else actually, either backup or starter has hit the portal to leave. So, besides Devontae Armstrong, another Ed's guy, but he kind of wasn't in the cards, at least not for next year, which is probably sort of like the writing on the wall, probably best for both sides.
Yeah.
But the offense could look very similar next year to what they did this year, is what I will say.
Yeah.
Minus Carnell Tate.
Yeah.
Which is a big minus, don't get me wrong. But that said, fixing the things that you need to fix for 8 months and having the same players there give me an immense amount of optimism about what that offense is going to look like next year.
Let me ask you this. You were in the NFL for how many years? I'm trying to remember. 8. From one year to the next, wasn't it amazing how many familiar faces there were that were from the previous year, but how many new faces there were?
Yeah.
And
free agency in the draft.
Some guys you might have even faced, the year before, et cetera. I really think the portal, it needs some guidelines. It needs a little more.
Oh, dude.
Where you can't just jump in.
Do a 3-hour session on what needs to happen with the portal and NIL.
Right, but let me get to this. What I'm saying here is, I think it's good for a football team to find out one way or the other, not who's for you and who's against you, but when guys immediately jump into the portal, when the portal becomes open, those are fellas that have figured out or have been told, it isn't going to work out for you here. It's rare for Ohio State to lose a guy, and at least so far it's been rare for Ohio State to lose a guy just based on money. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, sure. Jameson Williams left for Alabama. Alabama put out the help wanted shingle that they needed somebody to take the top off of defense that they didn't have the previous year. Sure. And Jameson Williams jumps in there. And now, of course, you've read some things where he was bitter. Well, you know what? He wasn't consistent enough, in practice, et cetera, for him to be that guy. If you follow my drift, there are reasons. There are reasons why, like Mylan Graham had his shot this year, for example. Now he's in the portal. I'm not knocking him. I think he's a talent. But he had his chance in real games to prove himself, and it didn't work out. And my point I'm asking you is this: a little bit of purging is not a bad thing. I don't know if you agree.
No, I agree. The one thing that I know, having been in the NFL and in free agency, and obviously playing for multiple teams, being released by one and signed by another, and I think this is what kind of like, to me, I'm not the biggest fan of, as a dad and a former player, is all the pageantry of college football gets lost because this is a hell of a lot like the NFL.
Yes.
And when I played in the NFL, people might, and again, I jokingly answer this question when people ask me, it's like, oh, what was the favorite team you played for? I'm like, whoever was paying me, whoever's logo showed up on my check or my direct deposit, every 2 weeks.
By the way, was it direct deposit?
In San Diego, it was not, but everywhere else it was direct.
Really?
Deposit.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Nothing like getting a $95,000 check every 2 weeks.
Yeah. You framed the first one, right? And then you
I cashed it and framed the first dollar. Yes.
Yeah. But go ahead now.
But it's and I think that's what's kind of getting again to talk to. You're absolutely right about the purging, and I think what I love also, having rubbed elbows throughout the recruiting process, but also just as a former player with Mark Pantoni, and nothing related to Mason and the way that all worked out for him, is there's a clear path. And there's a clear usage of the portal at Ohio State in regards to purging. You can't control who leaves, right? You can tell a guy you should probably hit the portal, and they can stay or they can go, whatever. But I think there's an absolute strategy. And I think, even me listening to the, 20 some minutes that Coach Day and Mark Pantoni talked about the 2026 recruiting class, that it's going to be, it's about development, especially for the bigs, which is cool that Mason's a big, but but to compete for the Big Ten and to compete for a national championship, you have to actively go out into the portal, and no one likes it. You know what I mean? Everyone right now is on edge about the portal. Everyone is on edge about having to do, you just lost. Now you got, 25 dudes in 14 days, you know what I mean, that are coming in. you're whining and dining, you're showing them everything that Columbus, Ohio and Buckeye Nation and Ohio State represents. The tough conversations about money with player or with mom or with roommate or with agent, aren't fun, and so, but yet when it's over on January 16th, thankfully, because there's no second portal, the 2026 Ohio State football team or whatever football team is constructed.
Yes.
And you'll know where your strengths are. You'll know, where you're kind of a little iffy about. And I think that's also on the flip side why you have amazing men as coaches and amazing developers within the game of football and amazing developers of talent to, again, work on addressed inadequacies, which we all kind of know what those are without saying what they are, for the next 9 months to go put the product that is going to make Buckeye Nation proud on September, whatever it is when they start.
Well, I'm stammering because I want to ask this the right way. Even in this era, I don't want to sound Pollyanna here because I'm not Pollyanna. I know money talks and BS walks, but you've got all these people criticizing Ohio State, or not all these people, a few people criticizing Ohio State for not ponying up for A, B, C, or D. We saw them kind of pony up for Ethan Onyeonwa, for example, in the portal last year. And how did that work out? Number one. But number two, you got to pony up to a certain extent. Sure. But how do you judge? I mean, I think the fine line now is, if for Mark Pantoni, for Ryan Day, for all the assistant coaches, is how do you judge whether a guy is in it still for the right reasons? If you follow my drift, I mean, to get a handle on a guy in the portal on what is he going to be like as a teammate, when in fact he's also, his rep is demanding this or asking for this. Yet to get a handle though on the kid, because he's still a kid, in all form, that is the game now, isn't it? That is the toughest thing.
It is, and I think on that note, this is Matt Wilhelm's speaking right now. I'm only speaking for myself, and I'm not saying everybody needs to agree with me. I believe on that point you're making, there's probably 5 to 7 universities with the leader of their football team that have created a culture and a brotherhood, and there's winning attached to it as well, that operate by a different set of rules than everybody else, where they don't have to overpay. And while you were speaking, I thinking about, I go, Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Yeah.
And I say, let me, even better, Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman, Ohio State with Ryan Day, Alabama with Kalen DeBoer, Kirby Smart with Georgia. Those 4 pop into my head immediately.
Yes.
And say, so let's just say any 4 of those are in right now because of what those 4 teams represent to college football, the men that are leading them, the winning, and how long the head coach of each of those places. I know Kalen DeBoer's only been there a couple of years, but he's kind of carrying the Nick Saban torch and the Alabama aura, we'll call it, are in on a kid versus LSU and Lane Kiffin. Okay?
Yeah.
LSU and Lane Kiffin have to be the highest because the stakes for LSU, the stakes for Lane Kiffin, the immediate results that they need because of the lack of results with Brian Kelly, over the last 4 or 5 years that are there. They're in must-win mode. We have the money mode, and we will spend mode to go win 10 games mode. Especially, you have his former employer, Ole Miss, playing in the college football semifinal.
Yeah,
which is a big FU to LSU and Lane Kiffin. So they're trying to eradicate a lot of bad that's going on there for 4 or 5 years. But then when you look at, say, the win percentage of Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Georgia over the last 5 years with the leaders in that program, the winning percentage is over 83%. I'm going to say 84% collectively of those 4 universities, and everyone is chasing that.
Yes.
So they don't have to be the highest because they present that opportunity. And oh, by the way, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, I would say probably make up 4 of the top 8 schools that put the most guys in the NFL in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years collectively as well. So that value if you can have a little bit of patience, take a little bit of a haircut to come here and be a part of what we have here, which is special. We'll win. You'll play. You'll get drafted. You'll be on the biggest showcase. You're going to make good money. You might not make. If we're going to give you 600, you might get 750 from LSU, and they might present the same thing, but they might not. We're fairly damn consistent over here. We're hyper competitive at 600. We'd love to have you a part of our brotherhood. You're going to be the next fill in the blank, the next Jackson Smith and Jigba, the next Bosa, the next Tyleek Williams, the next Denzel Burke, the next Cody Simon, the next. LSU can rattle off, 10 names. We can rattle off 50 of guys that came here, bought in, in the scarlet and gray, and the big got paid and paid well and got the payoff of ending up exactly where they wanted to be, which is that opportunity to don one of 32 NFL uniforms on Sundays.
Yeah. Hey, last thing just popped in my head while you were talking. 2002 Ohio State National Championship team. Y'all edged by the skin of your teeth 4 or 5 times in that season, but you got the job done when it mattered. Because all that matters is the W. I mean, we can talk. Ohio State versus Miami a week and a half ago, as we're recording this week ago. It was 17-14 in the fourth quarter. It wasn't 17-0. Ohio State was in the game, didn't make the plays it needed to win the ball game down the stretch, meaning getting off the field defensively on third down and then making the plays the few times you had it offensively. But I don't know why I even threw that in there. I want to go back to this. Of your 2002 football team, take yourself out of this question, okay, and take Maurice Clarett out of the question. Who would have been the most valuable sought after player from that team if in fact there had been a transfer portal that year?
Probably Chris Gamble.
And why do you say that?
There
are probably people watching this who don't even know who Chris Gamble was.
Correct. Right, correct. And I think Chris Gamble.
He was Travis Hunter. Yeah,
he was Travis Hunter before Travis Hunter. Exactly. He because of the offensive defensive role that he played.
Yes,
I think that,
and at a high level.
Yeah, correct. He was a wide receiver, who became a chess piece, which we now know what that represents with the way that we move around Jeremiah, the way we moved around Carnell Tate, the way we talked about Malachi Toney being moved around. Anytime a star player is not just lined up. So when he's in the game, defense is on high alert. But on the flip side, he was a wide receiver who went over and played defensive back like a wide receiver. And this is what the gift he gave you is he wiped one side of the field away. Yeah. You had to defend, essentially 2/3 of the field because Chris Gamble was all up in the mustache of whoever he was covering. And also in whatever coverage, it could be man, it could be 3. He played press man. He played press quarters. He played cover 1. We played cover 0. It didn't matter. Chris Gamble was a superior athlete against probably, and to everyone that he guarded, minus maybe Andre Johnson in the national championship game, the game you're talking about. But and I'll give it, a slight edge to, Andre Johnson because he just plays full-time wide receiver.
Yeah.
But I think
talk about a dude.
He in the portal would have been, I think, after that season, had he been able to hit the portal with the value that he had for that 2002 team, would have been his NIL number would have rivaled a quarterback's number in that $800 to $1.2 million range.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking that is I just think back to Orlando Pace. If he'd gone in the portal after his sophomore year, for example, when he was an All-American, he was on that Bob Hope All-American team. If he'd gone in the portal, what he'd been worth, but is it worth it from the standpoint of don't you need 3 or 4 more? But he does give you a bedrock from which to build, right? I just think real quick, what's going on in the portal now is, you could say a guy's worth this or worth that, but is he really getting offered that?
And this is the one thing that a lot of people don't know, and only because I'm attuned to everything from high school recruiting to the portal now. Not like I'm not an expert, just I'm on social media and I follow it. There's like 9,000 dudes in the portal right now.
Correct.
Okay. This is for the folks watching that aren't following it. There's 9,000 guys in the portal right now. Okay. There's probably only like 2,200 spots.
Correct.
Okay? So what happens to the other 7,000? They don't go, or 6,800. They don't go back to their said universities. What they do is they settle for D2, D3, NAIA. Some of them might go to JUCO. They disappear from the Power Four, Group of Five level. They disappear for a year, bet on themselves now at a lower level because they bet on themselves to enter the portal, and there were no takers. So then they downgrade to a lesser program in most cases, bet on themselves to be a plug and play starter because they came from something better, then go put out 12 weeks of great film. And then what they do is they hit the portal again. And they bet on themselves to go try to level back up.
Yeah.
But so that's just flat out numbers. But then when it comes to the numbers, and I think this is where a lot of kids get misconstrued and they get taken advantage of to a certain extent by agents who blow so much smoke up their ass about what they can get them or what their value is on the market, is like, of the 9,000, 90 to 150 dudes are making the primo top dollar money from big universities.
Correct.
Okay? So that's like, what is that? I mean, 10%, 7%, right? Of the 9,000, not even. No, I'm like, so like 1%, 1 to 3% make the FU money that we see all over social media that is being paid to these kids. Everybody else is probably taking a haircut. In some regard, that some of them might be leveling up, depending on the desperation, the amount of money or the boosters that they have a set program. But then, and here's where I think the portal, like where some type of governing body needs to manage the portal, is because there are, and I'm going to speak, and I'm not going to name a name, but there's a linebacker who used to play at St. Ed's. He went down to Coastal Carolina, a full ride, got a nice little, NIL package. He played on special teams, got in some games, but he's on his third linebacker coach in like 18 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this linebacker coach was like, you don't fit our scheme. Kind of like, thanks, but no thanks. So he's kind of forced to go hit the portal to go find himself his next home to continue his dream of playing college football. The money is a minute factor
afterthought
in his decision making. He just wants to go play ball, get a great education, and then take advantage of the rules, which is to make a little bit of money along the way and negotiate when it's time. But there's also a heavy portion of kids, and I even say, talk about Devontae Armstrong, not to name names, but it's like, and maybe in 2 years, not saying that I'm forecasting anything, but like in 2 years, Mason Wilhelm and I are going to have to sit down and go, like, what's the path to playing in the Scarlet and Gray? If I'm stacked behind dudes, and my performance in practice and in the spring game and my development is lagging, and I'm just using him because I don't want to name anybody else's name.
Yeah.
It's as an example. It's like, well, what do we want to do, Dad? What do I want to do, Mason? What do you want to do? You know what I mean? You want to stay and ride it out? Do you love where you're at? Is the money that they're paying you for the amount that you're putting in? And that's the one other thing that I'll say. And I said this in the last 3 times in the last 2 days, because it's like, it's getting real for Mason is, and again, I was a unanimous All-American on a national championship team and a leading tackler on a football team, and I didn't get shit but a scholarship. $0. $0. Okay.
Yeah.
And all these kids, and I know it, and that's why I say taking advantage of the rules that exist now. But like my son making $1 or $25 or 25 grand or 100 grand or 500 grand, and I'm just using him as an example instead of speaking of someone else, is like, without setting foot, he hasn't done shit yet.
Yeah. There you go.
But these agents and parents and kids position themselves like they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they haven't done shit at the college level yet, and they feel this sense of entitlement. That's why, like for us, Mark Pantoni told us our number, and we went after we had already committed. So like we're committing to Ohio State for a bazillion other reasons other than the amount of money you're going to pay us. You know?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to say that every family is like our family, but it's like, be grateful for the opportunity to go down there and be, a part of that brotherhood, a part of that culture, a part of Buckeye Nation, because Buckeye Nation, and I'm learning this now as almost a 45-year-old, is like, it will take care of me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
In some capacity.
Yeah.
And you want to be a part of something like that. And that, on top of all the work that this kid's going to put in, or these kids are going to put in the weight room, on the field, the stress, the have to living a different college life than everybody else is. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And, but if you put in the work, it will benefit you for the next 60 years of your life.
Yeah, and this isn't being Pollyanna, but ladies and gentlemen, from the starting point of maybe a million, I'm talking about people, players, whatever, to be whittled down to be one of 25 or 30 guys that are part of a recruiting class at a place like Ohio State. That, too many people now, not too many, but the upper echelon still think they're doing you a favor as opposed to the school. The school is doing you a favor. If you follow my drift, if I sign here, if I do this, that, and the other. See, to date example, I have really enjoyed the attitude of Jeremiah Smith because, I know he's being taken care of, but the flip side of it is he's really been part of the brotherhood too. He's embraced that. He likes that, and like you talked about, all of a sudden you're Jeremiah Smith in the week between Ohio State beating Michigan and you playing in that game a little bit on guts to then getting beat by Indiana. And in the meantime, the guy who recruited you the heaviest has just taken a head coaching job at South Florida, and everything's in disarray. And then all of a sudden, one of the guy that everybody says might be the next you, Chris Henry Jr., balks to begin with to coming to Ohio State initially, but then sticks with his commitment. All of the stuff that's just a microcosm of what went on that week. How could that not have been a distraction for everybody?
Well, I also
including
think
Ryan Day, including Brian Hartline.
Yes,
go ahead.
As it relates to Jeremiah, and this just speaks to how unique he is as a human being.
Yes.
Not just the football player. And I thought the comments that and this is also, and I give him immense amount of respect. He knew he was, everything. He's living up to everything that he was coming out of high school.
Yes.
Okay? And I thought his comments during the media session about had the U not been in the status, that inconsistent status of changing head coaches every 4 years and kind of in flux. But if they had been a consistent winner, and maybe Mario Cristobal is the guy that delivers it, right?
Yeah.
At that time, do you think you would have went to Miami and not been a Buckeye? And his answer was yes. And that's the cool part about Jeremiah. And I think the cool part about sometimes, and again, I have like a 22 basis point college matrix that I created, to make decisions because it gets tough. How much the winning, the environment of winning, the development while you're winning, while staying home would have been oh so attractive to a young man from South Florida and would have never ventured to Columbus, Ohio to been a Buckeye, to never ventured to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to be, to be
Crimson
Alabama,
Tide.
The Crimson Tide, Roll Tide, whatever
that is,
or a Georgia Bulldog or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like I respect the shit out of, Jeremiah going, I'd have stayed home and, went to and been a Hurricane had the program been in good standing. And that's what goes back to what I kind of said about, and I use the 4 as an example, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama is like, that's, what you're going to get when you walk in those walls. They're in good standing. I talked about the win percentage. I talked about the development. I talked about the number, probably being top 4 of the top 10 schools to put dues in the NFL. You know what you're going to get. And I think that's the inconsistency of these programs. And that's what that's why there's also head coaches being hired and fired, boosters and athletic directors being hired and fired and mandating guys get fired. And they're trying to chase the secret sauce.
Yes.
Buckeye Nation with Ryan Day has the secret sauce. Okay. Didn't go our way. We didn't play our best, on New Year's Eve in the Cotton Bowl. And we can address why, But again, we're going to reload with this recruiting class. We're going to reload in the portal like everybody else is. And again, as I said, on January 17th, when we all wake up in the morning, the 2026 Buckeye rosters, for the most part, constructed. And that's who it is. And it's like, go grind it out and work your ass off, overcome those deficiencies and put, a premier product, out on the field when you roll out against Kent State at some point at the Horseshoe.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's Matt Wilhelm. I think, given his druthers, he'd like to spend the next 3 or 4 years on the same team with his son, playing again, reliving it, run it back. Right?
He kicked my ass.
It is amazing, real quick before you go, the brutality of the game you love, brother. I mean, I'm watching I'm rewatching the Ohio State Miami game a couple times because I really wanted to. Like I said, I think every offensive lineman had his moment in the glare as opposed to the spotlight in that game. Yet they mustered some things together. But my point is just the constant boxing match, brutal UFC almost level. Actually, I think true boxing is more brutal, but that's another story for another day. That they went through on both sides of the line of scrimmage and stuff, playing for good old you know what I mean? And the chance to play for.
I'll share with you on the physicality standpoint and how it. And again, this just pops in my brain, and this happened yesterday, so there's a little bit of a little bit of insight because I'm privy to it. Given Mason in his role, we're down in Columbus. We're getting the key. I'm getting the key. Him and I are getting the keys for his apartment. He went down, got his physical, had his first workout, did his testing with Coach Marati and his staff. And I walk in the leasing office of the apartment place, and Sincere Johnson's sitting there. Mason and Sincere played each other between Glenville and Ez the last couple of years, so they have that like competitive bond of like respect for each other because they're thumping each other all game long. And Sincere was the first one to give Mason a voice message when he flipped. He's like, I knew it, and so. But then Sincere's walking out of the leasing office. He goes, hey man, and I'm like, what's up? He's like, I watched that 2002 Miami game. He's like, you were a dog. And I was like, thank you, man. You know what I mean? So it's just full circle that, like, again, all that, the pageantry and all the respect of these young guys that we sometimes, put into this like social media millennial box. There's still those. And again, I think Ohio State does a great job recruiting those guys because, they could offer everybody, but they don't. So they're very strategic to go get the right guys for this program to represent them in the Scarlet and Gray moving forward. And I think, Sincere Johnson is a great dude, and him and Mason will keep battling each other in practice, so nothing will change on offense and defense, but they're going to be brothers because of it. And he could very well be the next Arvell Reese type of player from Coach Ginn and the Glenville High School Tar Butters.
Yeah, I was going to say, new guys have shown up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, just when you think, oh, blah blah blah. By the way, I want to touch on next time we're together. I want to talk about how you go from 7-8 months of training to then being able to, that great photo you posted of yourself in the Miami game. You're in the air, you're not jumping into water or on a pad. You're in the air trying to get to Ken Dorsey, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you got this look in your eye like, I want to hit you as hard as I can. And then the next play, you've got to maybe do the same thing over again.
Yeah.
Where do football players truly come from? The ability to just throw every caution to the wind and do that. Not one time, not like me going off the 10-meter board just from the platform just to feel like what it feels like hit the water, but to do that over and over and over again for maybe 16 games. Y'all aren't natural people. You understand that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's the cool part is, I hope I've done as good as I can to this point because we kind of hand Mason off on Thursday to Coach Marati and Coach Bowen and Coach Day is both mentally, that's a big part of it as well, and physically prepare him for what's ahead.
Yes.
And even Mason trains with Chase Ferris, former player, played for the Patriots as well. It's like
he's been on this show.
Yeah. And I think the biggest shot that's going to come, and both Chase and I are going to talk about it and try to have him ready, is for those mat drills, those winter workouts, when you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're literally being tortured. But the good that comes out of that trauma benefits A, you an individual, and B, your brothers, doing it with your brothers as well. And then I'll say C, collectively, the product that goes on the field, that runs out on the field, all those, that 12 times in the fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Wednesdays with Wilhelm. This is, I don't know what I call this with May, mayhem with May, but hey, Matt, once again, man, thanks for joining the Tim May Show.
Of course, brother. Thanks for having me.
I'll see you next time. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time. We hope you join us.
Shh. By the way, Clay has left the room. I wanted to let you folks in on a real bargain out there in the world of simulator golf. The Back Nine Golf, which is located at 2820 Fishinger Road in Upper Arlington,
has a hell of a holiday box available to you right now. The value is nearly $300, but your price is $150 if you jump online. That's almost 50% off if you jump online at Columbus at theback9golf.com. That's their email address. Their website is theback9golf.com/Columbus-upper-Arlington-OH/ That's a long address, but just write it down a couple times watching it. And you can also call them at 614-362-7888, parentheses, PUTT, P-U-T-T. But the bottom line is one of the new ultra modern simulators that you can find in the greater Columbus area. And it's really right there in the middle of Upper Arlington. I know Tito Thidoff and I hopped in there the other day. I think it was 16 degrees outside. There was snow and ice everywhere, and we played Pebble Beach. And we did it in less than an hour. So it's one of the great bargains going out there. And with this holiday box, you get 1 month of Birdie membership. You get Back Nine branded golf balls. You get cozy Back Nine beanie, and you get premium Back Nine towel. So that's a hell of a deal because basically it's unlimited golf. It's 24/7. You get a code to get you in the door, and then you can go from there. And it's definitely fun. It's the premises are pristine. I know we had a great time. We even played closest to the hole, a few shots on number 7, famed number 7 short par 3 at Pebble Beach the other day, and had a great time doing it. So if you're looking for that last minute gift for a golfer that you love, or yourself that you love, that you're a golfer, nothing wrong with giving yourself a gift at this time of the year. That's the Back Nine Golf holiday box, and it's only a limited time, and as you can imagine, there are only a few available. Quantities are tight, so check in at theback9golf.com.